Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Church Online podcast. My name is Jason Morris and I have the pleasure of interviewing Daniel Herron. He's part of the Robloxian Christians, which is an online church that's been serving the Roblox community since 2011. They provide in-game church services, Bible studies, life groups, prayer teams, mentorship, and outreach mission all throughout Roblox and the Roblox universe. So let's get started to hear more about what the Robloxian Christians are and what they do.
I kind of want to get to know you a little bit because one of the things, you may not know this, my son, he just finished an internship at Roblox. And so he's in California right now, having a lot of fun with a lot of the engineers. And a lot of people, they don't even know about Roblox or whatever. I want to hear a little bit about your story as to how you came to Jesus, your background with church, and then what was the idea behind, doing something inside Roblox for Church Online?
Yeah, sure. Let's see where to start. I guess, so I'm from Tacoma, Washington. I was born and raised here. I go to school in Spokane, Washington.
Okay.
At Whitworth University on the other side of the state. It's a small Christian liberal arts school. I guess I was born and raised, kind of grew up in the Presbyterian Church USA. My grandfather was a minister, and
wow, that's cool.
A lot of my family's just been involved in the PCUSA in different levels. So I sort of grew up in our local church. It's very mainline Protestant. Interesting. I was always felt connected to my church. Just knowing that because it was my grandfather was a pastor, but then like 4 generations back, it was a man that is like my great grandfather or something like that started our local church that we go to now. So I always sort of felt this little connection to.
That's really cool. So it's like in your blood almost, doing like church ministry stuff.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, oh, wow, that's cool. So I always felt kind of connected to my local church. And we're just going to start sort of from the beginning of the online church. I'll take you back to 2011. I was a 6th grader at our local. I went to a pre-kindergarten through 8th grade school. So I was there for 10 years, which is a long time to be in this little building. It's like 2 blocks away. It's like my house, and then there's my church, and then there's the school on like a 2-block radius. So that was pretty cool. Anyways, so I was a little 6th grader, and I was playing these like flash games on the internet on random sites. And one day I was playing with my friend next door, and I you know how these things can like lead to like scams and stuff, but I clicked on a banner ad because it was some game site that looked cool. I saw like this little avatar dude like blowing up like a virtual structure or something. I was like, that looks like a fun 3D game that I want to play. So I just went ahead and clicked on the ad, and then I made a Roblox account, and there I was on Roblox all of a sudden. So that was interesting. I started playing Roblox games in 2011. And I started in April, and I just kind of got pretty hooked pretty quick. I'm not going to lie. I spent a lot of time on there, just playing these random games, and I made a few friends online. So like me and my next door neighbor would play it at first, and then I started making friends online and just like had a few people that I would play a lot with. I can't really remember any of the first games I played. Oh, there was one. It was called Jet Wars 2, and it was like really popular for like flew around planes and shot at each other. Anyway, that was the game I played for a long time. And then eventually I was like on Roblox, and I was just hanging out, trying to see how things were. And once I got a hold of that, I was sort of just like trying to look for a community to join, because Roblox is like for those of you that don't know Roblox, it's sort of built into this. It's this sort of platform. It's less of like a game site or a video game in itself. It's more of a platform where there's games. Everything on it's user created. So there's games that you can create and get people to play, and then there's also like social groups that you like make friends and meet people and play games together. And it's those groups are sort of like Facebook groups sort of, except for less not techie, but like less functional, I kind of want to say. They're really basic. So I was trying to look for groups, and I could have joined some random group about like that made friends or whatever, but I didn't do that. I was actually really specifically looking for like a Christian group on Roblox.
Okay.
Because like I spent a lot of time at my local church and was sort of involved in like Sunday school and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, I want to look for a Christian group or community on Roblox. And I found one, and it was called, listen to this name, it was called the Christians of Robloxia.
Okay.
So
that sounds very Roblox. That's hilarious.
It was very Roblox.
Yeah. So
I joined this group and I started to get kind of involved in it. And it was okay. It was cool. It was sort of like, there's some groups on Roblox that were like, the older groups are sort of like, there's some that are just sort of like a fan page. And it sort of was just a fan page. It was like, just say, hey, I'm a Christian, I'm gonna put it on my profile by joining this group. So it really didn't do very much. Maybe they posted Bible verses every few days, but they didn't really do all that much, like in terms of user engagement and talking with young people and all that sort of stuff. So I was there for a little bit, and then I sort of got bored of it. So I left for a while, and then I still had this like feeling of like wanting to be engaged in a Christian group. So when I got for Christmas, I asked my parents for Builders Club, which is sort of like the premium membership that you pay for on Roblox. Roblox is free unless you pay for this membership, and it got you Robux, virtual currency, which I was like, yes, finally. I'm a cool kid now.
Right.
Mind you, I was in 6th grade, but
now, was this the Ultimate Builders Club that you were part of?
No, this was the basic Builders Club.
Basic one. Okay, all right.
This is the basic. This is $5 a month. I got with a Roblox gift card, and I was like, okay, I'm set now. I'm set. But with Basic Builders Club, it allows you to make groups. So you couldn't create groups unless you were a Builders Club member. So I was like, okay, I got abilities now. I got some power. Not really, but so I the day after Christmas, I distinctly remember this. I was visiting my grandparents in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. And I sat down at their really old computer, and I created this group, and it was called, I called it the Robloxian Christians, which is really common to me today because everything I do is related to this. But back then I had absolutely no idea. I just created this group because I wanted a place to have a Christian community with my friends.
Right.
So like I created this place, this group, and we're just gonna be honest here. I had no grammar, no sense of spelling, no nothing.
Well, you're in 6th grade. What do you expect?
I was in 6th grade, right? And I was just like chilling online, right? So I had this, and then from there, I don't really remember all that much, except that I would like. So on Roblox, you're supposed to like build games and stuff,
right?
And I've never really been interested in the whole like coding or any of that. Some people really are. It was never my thing. So I tried to build us a place for us, like a virtual spot for my friends and I to pray and stuff. So what it ended up being was just, I figured out how to get a flat like base plate, just a flat single block. And it started out as just this like, now it's what you start with. I had to actually create it.
Yeah.
So I just had this flat piece, and I was just like, okay. I invite a few friends, and it ended up with us all gathered in like a small little circle, just praying for each other and sharing what like we needed. what our highs and the lows of our week were, that sort of thing, and what we need to
Huh.
prepare for. And we actually prayed with each other in game. So it's just
Okay,
like,
so this was like a literal platform
yeah,
for prayer, just a prayer group. That's how it
sort
started.
of, yes, yeah. So I've
Huh.
just started as, and not even, I wouldn't even call it like a prayer group in terms of like being a ministry. It
Hmm.
was more just a group of friends just praying together and
Right,
like talking about our weeks and stuff.
right. So it's
So
just,
that's what,
in a way, I guess it would be kind of like how some people would call up a friend and use a different tool
yeah,
to do the same
yeah,
thing.
it was
Okay.
sort of like that.
Hmm.
So we really started there, and then somehow more people started showing up. I have no idea how that happened. And at some point, our little group of me and 5 of my friends, 6 of my friends, sort of grew into a group of maybe 30 or 40. And at that point, I was like, "Oh wow, I'm doing good with this little community group." But
Hmm.
so I thought my little 6th grade myself was really happy there. Um,
So you're sixth grade, you have a 30-person group of people who get together and pray. And that's it.
yeah, yeah, and that was it. And then at some point, I was like, maybe we should make like a virtual church building
Mhm.
for this group. So I went ahead and I took my building skills, because mind you, I know how to like build things sort of with the blocks on Roblox,
Mhm.
but I don't know how to like script it and make it work well.
Right.
So I built us this dilapidated little church building that sort of looks like a one-room church house,
Mhm.
something that you might figure on like the American West or something. Honestly, I don't know.
Right.
It was kind of old. Um, and once we had that, I'd start to have these actual like gatherings each week where we would have church online.
So
So
describe
we
to me
would,
what that is like.
yeah. So I guess I'll talk about what it's like now.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so like we have virtual events. We call our Sunday service that people will come to. Um, and it starts with like we're able to play MP3 audio tracks
Mhm.
that our worship team, we now have a worship team that actually records that music and we play it in game. Um, and then we have like usually there's music before we start, and then people join and we open a time of worship. And then everyone's seated in like the seats, and then we have a
Mhm.
small little stage. It's not that elevated, but sort of. And then we have our like either our one of our coordinators, our team coordinators, or our associate pastors. They'll come up and they'll like welcome and join in prayer. Everyone just prays together.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's usually a little bit more worship, and then there's the passing of the peace where people get to know each other, introduce each other, say hi,
Mhm.
um, and then there's announcements and all that. And then um, so it's a lot like a typical church service, just it's online. Then we
Mhm.
have our sermon, which usually for the Sunday services I give it. I lead that.
And
And
how do you
that's
do that?
interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what a lot of people ask about.
Uh-huh.
What's important to know about Roblox is it's not voice chat.
Right.
It's all typing
Yeah.
and uh, like bubble chat. So like little bubbles
Right.
appear over the avatar's head, which is kind of interesting when you're in a
I think
room
one
with.
of the reasons why they do that is because Roblox is inherently designed for kids. If
Mhm.
they introduce voice chat, that's a whole lot more difficult to moderate.
Yes, and
So I think that's
moderation.
probably why they do it that way.
Yes, it definitely is. Um, Over the years, there have been some little hints about maybe bringing like features, like sort of voice chat features, but not really. But honestly, at the state of Roblox moderation right now, I don't think that it's gonna
Right.
ever matriculate.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So I give a sermon. So I type out line by line, and it's not something that I'm like copying and pasting. Like
Uh-huh.
I'll take scripture and preparing for it, I will um, like create a sermon plan where I'll take the
Okay.
different scriptures I'm going to use. I'll think about the point I'm trying to make, maybe make a few bullet points, and from that, during the sermon, I'll actually form sentences and type it out line by line. And when we do it, it's like we have a system where I can type it in a certain way that it will project on everyone's screen. So even when people are sitting way in the back and they can't see the bubbles because everyone else is, chatting, which we try to calm people down a little bit.
Right. Yeah. That part for me, I would think would be the harder part, really.
Yes.
Just trying to keep people from like randomly walking on stage, because I mean, in person, no one would ever do that.
Yeah, no one would do that.
In Roblox,
But
stuff like that happens all the time.
yeah, and that's a little bit, so we have all of our coordinators, like the people that are volunteering at our services, either it's our welcoming team or our prayer partners or whoever it is. We in the training for that volunteer job, we instruct on moderation, and like we specifically call it troll moderation because we get a lot of trolls. we have ways to like make it so there's less trolls, but there are definitely still trolls.
So how do you do that in that environment?
Yeah, so also something that's challenging there is, as a ministry, we walk a fine line between like being a welcoming space for all people, and then also like keeping it a safe and like respected place. So
Which
we sort
is
of
the
have
challenge for any
guidelines.
church, really.
Yeah, it really is. But I think it's especially a challenge for like virtual communities that you can't like necessarily determine who someone is behind the screen right away. So sort of we take a few different steps. One, we make it so in order to join the church, like the virtual places, your account has to be at least 12 days old. So like people can't, like if they get banned or removed from the server temporarily, they can't like make a new account on Roblox and join again and continue. We also have a system that's like we have a 3-strike system that's really common. We will start with a warning. We'll like ask you to stop if you're like talking in the middle of the service, for example. Or like we have people that will come in that you can almost automatically tell that they're going to troll based on like what their avatar is wearing on Roblox.
Right.
Like if someone's wearing like this one actually cracked me up the other day. We had someone walk in and their avatar was dressed complete like an Oreo cookie. Like both sides, the side of them was like white frosting and the other sides were Oreo cookies, and I was just like, this guy. Anyway, sometimes they'll walk up and just because they're not actually Satanists, but they believe, or they are usually just people that don't believe in God whatsoever, and they'll just come in and say, "Hail Satan." It's just like the go-to term for trolls on Roblox. They just love to say "Hail Satan" whenever religious people are around. So they'll come in and they'll like walk up to the front and just yell "Hail Satan." And usually what we do is we send them a little private personal messaging game and ask them to stop. And then if they don't respond to that, then we have a next step is we're able to mute their account, or not their account, but their like avatar. So they just can't type anymore. So they can still be in the service, but they can't like necessarily participate. But that gets kind of tricky because sometimes if we have a lot of people there, we'll mute everyone for like the sermon section. So everyone can like see it, but not necessarily respond. But when we do that, we might unmute the people that we've muted purposely. So it becomes a little tricky. Then the third step is just removing them from the service. And a lot of times actually we'll be streaming the service as well. So they're able to watch. If they actually want to watch, they can watch it on YouTube.
Oh, okay. So you're taking kind of like OBS or something like that.
Yes.
And then you're taking
and our media team is sort of responsible for that. Yeah, they go ahead and they do all of that. And that's really the only time we do that is when our server, like, because since Roblox is an online platform, they have like server limits for each game, each place, and our server limit is 200. And we usually don't get 200 people all at once, because people are always joining and leaving and stuff, and that's just a lot of people to have in a Roblox server. Honestly, the few times we've had that many people at one time in our virtual place, it tends to like the server tends to lag and crash. So but we do offer that when we get close to that, and it so it doesn't, like, in case it gets all filled up.
So I've heard a lot about these different teams that you're talking about. So how many people are actually making this whole thing work?
Yes. So let's see. So we have a sort of, when someone first joins, we encourage them to get involved. And we start by like saying, come attend events. And after a month or two that you've been really involved, we encourage you to apply to be a volunteer. And that's sort of like, we have a big pool of people that have taken our volunteer application. And it's just like, I don't know, it's actually kind of long. It's sort of where we get our demographics from, actually, because Roblox is really stringent about sharing personal information.
You're dealing with minors in most cases.
Yes. But it's not like we don't ask for like their first and last name, maybe their first name, but not their last name. We're not, nothing that we acquire is going to like give us a location of a person or enough information to like log into something. So it's all, it's mostly just like your standard like college application demographics, like the race or your gender. So we gather that information. We also ask them questions about like your strengths and weaknesses. And then along with like some spiritual questions about like what you believe, how you know you're saved, for example. And then from that, our hiring director gets the privilege of reading all of those applications. And then based on the different skills and talents and all that he sees, placing each person on one of the teams. So we have the different teams that we have. We have welcoming team. We have our hiring sort of volunteers, our prayer team that offers support on our Roblox group has like a section, it's called the discussion wall. And that's where a lot of people will like ask for prayer or be praying for other people and all that sort of stuff. Faith Life goes there. So they'll be there, but they're also in our Discord server, which is it's another service that we connect with Roblox that Roblox allows us to do this actually. So it allows for more open communication with Roblox users that are older than 13. So it allows for like voice chat and images and all that sort of thing. So the people
there's a lot of actual ministry that can actually happen through Discord.
Yeah, I know they're like Virtual Reality Church has part of their ministry is on Discord as well. So we have our prayer team that works there as well. And usually the people that are on Discord are actually more committed, are the more committed members and such that will join on there. Then we have our outreach ministry team that goes out into all different areas of Roblox games and invites to pray with people, random people, asking them what they need, if there's anything they can help them with, just going out to random strangers and doing that kind of stuff.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work to manage, to be completely honest with you. That's kind of my responsibility there. Anyway, we have our prayer team, welcoming team, hiring volunteers, outreach team. I'm trying to think. We have our media team that sort of does a lot of the graphics and the streaming and that kind of thing. And then we have our what was the other one? Oh gosh. Oh, our music worship team. And they sort of participate, help in worship, along with, if they are musically gifted, which I am not, they will record music for the services.
Okay. So in total, like on a given service, how many people would be involved with all those teams put together to pull it off?
Let's see. So real quick, before I give you that number, we also, from our volunteer pool, we also have a coordinator for each team, and each coordinator has an assistant, which not all of them have assistants right now. We're kind of behind on our applications and all that right now. But so we have all of our coordinators, and then we have sort of the step up from that, which is like our hiring director and our sort of director of operations, who is currently off for 6 months serving in the Arizona mountains, or New Mexico. So we haven't seen him for a while, and then there's sort of me managing everything on top, which is a lot. So at a given service or event, we would probably see, I want to say maybe 7 or 8 or 9 people at a service that are either at the coordinator or volunteer level.
Okay.
then the rest are either, well, they are church members, because we used to have it how like the church was a public game that anyone could access.
Mm-hmm.
And we've realized that when we have it like that, we have way more trolls, which we tried to avoid. So we made it so anyone can join the group, the Roblox group, and from the group, anyone can join that virtual game.
Okay.
So it's sort of like you just have to request access to the group first, and then you can join the place.
Okay.
And then we also have our God is Love virtual ministry, which rather than being a like virtual place where we hold events, is a place that's open all the time, 24/7. That's sort of, it's somewhat moderated, but not really. That hosts 5 people at a time. They can just come in and talk about faith with whoever's there. There's music playing in the background. It's just this sort of like floating island in space, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really pretty place, but it has, it represents the cross and the table for communion. And there's a cross with the crown of thorns that's hanging on it. So it's sort of just this little pretty serene place for people to come and visit. And just as we've had it open since 2015, and we just passed 500,000 place visits in the last 3 months or so. So that was pretty cool to.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, 500,000.
That number, 500,000 people that have come through, and
that's really cool. Because I went and I visited that place, and I know what you mean. It felt like like how some churches or parishes would stay open for people to just come and pray.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like a space where you could just go and just chill and, be a little contemplative. And yeah, it was kind of neat. And then to do it with 5 other people, if they were, wanting to be there for the same reasons, I could see it being meaningful, just to take a break or whatever.
And if they're not wanting to be there for the same reasons, we've added a feature that you can turn off the chat, so you don't have to see anything that anyone else says.
Yeah.
So that's helpful as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I know that Roblox is generally geared toward a younger demographic. And so I'm kind of curious as to, when you're doing church, who is it that you're ultimately trying to reach? What who are you like trying to engage with?
Yeah, so since Roblox is a kids, technically they label themselves as an entertainment platform, sort of a kids focused gaming platform. Well, looking at our demographics, and what we've learned is that our average age at the Robloxian Christians is 14 to 15. So it's sort of in that sweet spot between middle school and high school. Okay. And from what we've seen, most of our kids are either middle school or high school. So it's sort of like that cross in between where all youth ministries are is just like there, and like middle school and high school. So like, for example, in our sermons, we will try to I don't know, we're gonna switch back for a second. As we serve youth ministry, as we serve these middle school, high school kids, our goal is to create a zone that is not as distraction filled as you'll see in like a typical middle school, high school ministry, with all the sorts of middle schoolers going crazy and high schoolers doing whatever. At least from my own experience. Maybe there are other perfect middle school ministries out there that I just don't know about. But a lot of the things that, like in our sermons or in our messages that we'll give, a lot of them are more targeted towards a younger audience. So one of the beautiful things about Roblox is, say I want to preach on Noah's Ark, for example. What we've done in the past is actually built a giant ark and like have it be floating out there, and we'll board the ark with all our virtual avatars and stand on top and actually preach from there. And I think something that's beautiful about being able to create such an engaging place is that people will get engaged and then they'll stay to listen and pay attention and actually get the point of what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to get across each time, which is cool. And Another thing is with younger people as compared to adults, adults don't understand what Roblox is. Um, our goal on TRC is not to like necessarily engage people that aren't on Roblox, but rather to really commit to those that are actually already on the platform. And there's millions of people that play Roblox,
Oh
so
yeah.
it's big with the younger kids especially. Um, but reaching out onto the Roblox platform in ways that only people on Roblox would really like understand and
Mm-hmm.
get is really cool to me. And
Yeah, when I see what you guys are trying to do, it reminds me of the same type of mentality that a missionary would have. So
yeah,
you're kind of going into a space, you understand who you're trying to reach, you understand the culture and
yeah,
even the language in which
hmm
you're trying to minister to people. And so you're not trying to ask everybody to come to your mission field per
hmm
se. You're going to them where they already are and you're
yeah,
speaking their language. To me, that makes total sense. You know, I was a
hmm
missionary in Paraguay, South America for almost 9 years.
yeah.
I totally
And
understand that process.
mhm. I wrote an article a couple of, I think it was in December for Duke Divinity's newsletter. And I've really looked into where it is, like where in the Bible um, this sort of approach happens. And I really appreciate the story of Zacchaeus, how he's like trying to see Jesus.
Hmm.
Um, he's a tax collector and he's trying to see Jesus, and he climbs up in the tree to see Jesus. And Jesus comes up to him and he says, "Hey, Zacchaeus," and like the song goes, "I'm coming to your house today." And
Right.
how it's like, I'm not, you can't like meet me later.
Hmm.
Don't like meet me down the street. We're gonna talk in the synagogue or the church. Like
Right. Come
we're
join me
coming
on
to where, come
Sunday when
join
we
me
go
at
to
your,
the temple at 9 o'clock. No, I'm going to go
yeah,
to where you
we're going
are.
to where you're at, to your house, and meet with you there and actually share what I'm about with you there. So I think that's really totally awesome when I look at that. But
So
yeah,
when I hear a lot of things that you've really intentionally thought through when it comes to
hmm
discipleship in the platform,
hmm
um, could you tell me a few stories about how that discipleship process occurs?
yeah. I think a lot of people first come into the church through either a friend inviting them, or we run like those same banner ads that I clicked on as a sixth grader. Roblox allows people to use the virtual currency on Roblox to reinvest into your game and like run the similar ads, less scammy, less like malicious ads on the platform to advertise your places. So like we'll run ads for our God is Love ministry that we talked about already, or for our group in general. So a lot of people have joined us through those sort of ads over the years. Um, and from that, once they're involved, we really try to make an effort to engage with them, to get them to fill out that volunteer application, um, regardless of whether they decide to be a volunteer or not. Even just getting the information from there allows us to connect deeper with who they are, where they're from, um, and encourage them to join the Discord community. Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that happen, like you can join the group, like the Roblox group,
Mm-hmm.
and not get involved at all. It's not very, it does, we have very little ability to notify you once you join the group. Like you
Right.
could, like we can send out a notification
Mm-hmm.
that will appear on your Roblox status, which is like your news feed. But the thing about that is on Roblox, they've made it so now your stats, you have to click on something and click on another thing to access it. So we're really not going to have much ability to reach you unless you're wanting and putting in the effort um, to
Right.
like get that.
So
So
you're
that's one of
dealing with
the,
the limitations of the platform itself. So when it comes to the
yes,
actual community side, you're kind of
uh-huh.
moving them to Discord in order to make that happen.
Yes, either moving them to Discord or moving them to um, make the decision to actively come to services. Because when they're actually like in the Roblox games, we can talk to them really easily.
Mm.
When we're face to face or avatars are face to face, we can communicate really easily. When they're in the Discord, we can't actually, people on our Discord hate us because we ping them too much, but like we can notify them regularly, and they'll get a little alert that will say, hey, come to the service now, or hey, we're doing something or another. So we're able to engage people a lot easier in those settings, which is why we really push to get people involved in that way. And I guess a few stories of this. I'm trying to think of the best ones. This one's a little bit depressing, just a warning. However, I think it's also really meaningful and impactful. So we had, I think a big part of our church and our audience in general is, or at least it was, before Roblox really got popular in 2016-ish, I'm just gonna be honest here, it was sort of the meme of all the video game platforms. However, I think from that, a lot of the people that were online on Roblox and in the gamer community as a whole are people that are sort of, maybe not anymore, but used to be sort of more of outcasts of their schools. And a lot of people have struggled with bullying and with all sorts of those sorts of things from real life. Or like, for example, if you go to church and let's say you're overweight, or you have a social anxiety, or any of those sorts of things, when you're in real person in a brick and mortar church, you're having to engage with what other people are thinking about you, and what your youth pastor might think, and all those sorts of things that just don't exist or are reduced a great amount online. So I think one of the best examples of how the vulnerability that the online community has offered, we had someone, let's call her, what's a good name? Let's call her Jill. That's a random name that I just thought of, Jill. She'd been coming to TRC for several months. She'd gotten involved. She was serving on the welcoming team. And she had really made some friends online, but she had been battling depression and anxiety, and it had been really tough for her. Her family situation was tough as well. Her parents were divorced. She had lots of step siblings that just weren't there. I mean, unfortunately, it's a really typical situation across America and across the world, but she had been coming online for some time, and she had decided to get involved, and she'd made good friends that were like supporting her, and she decided to not only like make friends, but also like share more about her and allow her friends to become like really meaningful relationships outside of Roblox, like on Snapchat and Instagram and all sorts of things. So the friendships that were created through TRC sort of expanded outside of like what we controlled. So anyways, as she was struggling through her depression, her anxiety, there was a night in July of 2017 that things got really tough, and she tried to end her life, which happens way too frequently with young people, especially online. And I have been on the National Suicide Prevention Hotline way too many times than I would have liked to
me too.
in my last 7 or 8 years. However, what I believe is a miracle that happened, and I would like to accredit because of the work that TRC does, is that when someone heard about, because she told some people from the online church what she was going through and that she was thinking about doing this, she's from Alabama, someone from Minnesota, or I think it was Wisconsin, actually called like emergency response people all the way from Wisconsin in Alabama, and they responded as she was like actually going and doing what she was trying to do. even though it didn't work. Thank the Lord, it didn't
Mhm.
work. She overdosed, and that didn't work. And the emergency people were there just in time to figure that out. But I just think that the vulnerability that people have and the things that people share about the pain that they're going through, whether it's their parents' divorce or their depression or their anxiety, or the list goes on and on of things that people have actually shared with people that they don't necessarily know at all, online, just because of the space that we've cultivated and created online, is really incredible to me. I think there are many stories of similar things, maybe not as drastic, but similar examples of people that have come around and just supported one another. And I think it's incredible because you wouldn't hear about this in your physical church. Like, there might be, like, these are things that they're not telling their parents, even if it's necessarily it's the good thing to do is to tell your parents that you're going through these things. But in reality, you're not going to tell your parents that you're getting picked on in school about so and so. These are just the realities, and they're coming on. People are coming online and sharing them here around their peers, and it's really remarkable to just see how these real world issues that, like, in elementary school they would talk about what to do if you're being bullied, but those just aren't practical when, like, you're scared. So that's something that we work on the online church a lot, is helping people through that. And along with I keep repeating the word vulnerability, because people are so vulnerable to share these things and trust the people online, because I think that's one of the big things that makes a community where nobody's actually met anyone, is like sharing about your life. And from that, building community and building friends that you can trust to not necessarily resolve your issues, but get through the issues in your life. I think that's something that's God has worked through a lot in this community, is like building prayer networks and building supporting friends that will help you through whatever you're going through in your life. So I think that's just a big benefit of the online church. That's kind of long-winded, but
no, I love that. I love that. One of the things I hear from you is, and I keep on noticing it over and over, you have a mentality of a missionary, but you have a pastor's heart. I hear coming out of your mouth a lot of things like community, vulnerability, gathering, sharing, all of those things. That doesn't happen by accident. And it feels like to me that impulse that Jesus said he would build his church is finding its expression in some really unique ways and unique places, even Robloxia. So I think that the interesting thing is that for whatever reason, and I love that you're doing new things like creating experiences for people, like the Noah's Ark thing, because because you can. That would be really difficult to pull off in the real world.
I mean, you could try it, but
you could. I mean, some people have, in Kentucky, but you can't do it. You can't just decide one week you're going to do church that way. But what you've done is you've taken that flexibility that Roblox has given you, whether it is a literal platform where you get together and pray, or you're creating an experience like a Noah's Ark experience, so that people that are in middle school transitioning to high school would be engaging with, and then having somewhat of a process for discipleship and community and belonging. That sounds like church to me. And the interesting thing too is a lot of times we forget that Jesus' disciples were teenagers. And early, there's like even reports like John, the apostle, was probably around somewhere between 13 and 16 when he was called by Jesus. And that is the exact same demographic, the same age that you are ministering to these people. And those who do youth ministry know, as well as parents of teenagers know how important that window of time is when people are forming their identities, and you're allowing them to form their identities, where they're throwing on avatars and being an Oreo, but you're trying to teach them to be like Jesus in that environment, and that hopefully will transfer into their true identity. And I think it's a beautiful thing, the way that Jesus is building his church in all different types of ways, in all different types of places. I'm curious though, because you've been doing this for a long time, since 2011, it sounds like, right?
Yes.
So if you could do it over, what would you do differently?
Oh, that's hard. If I could do it all over again. I guess, I don't know. I don't think there are many things I would do differently, because I never had any intention to do any of this. I was just making a group for some of my friends, and God used it. So I don't know if there are many things I would have done differently. There may be a few things, maybe in 2013 and 2015, that were sort of like, since I went to this, I had no idea what I was doing. I was growing through the teenage years of trying to figure that out as well. I think as I was learning what this was and what this was becoming, there were some like internal things of like management and leading people. Like we've had I don't want to say it like this, but we've had some internal drama over the years of like some people. Yeah, like any church. Church drama is the worst, by the way, especially with teenagers. But but yeah, I think some of the sort of picking the right people for different positions, and when people are placed in the wrong position, like the transition out of that has been rough different times. So I think if I could have taken that back and put them in the right place the right time, I think that would have been something I would change. However, I don't think there's really all that much. I mean, we have had incredible success in this. I think that starting with a group of 6 people and now having over 22,000 people is absolutely remarkable. I think it's God working. There is one thing. It's not something I'd change necessarily, but the group that I mentioned in the very beginning that I joined and left is called the Christians of Robloxia. They have always been sort of the number one. They've been the largest group on Roblox forever. And we are almost the same size as them. We're like really close, which is amazing because they've always just sort of been the icon of Roblox, and that they've always told me that churches can never work on Roblox. And I'm just like saying, I think it can. So that's sort of where we're at right now. Also, I've never met anyone from my online church in person until last October, when I spoke at a conference in Santa Barbara, and my friend and the director of operations that I mentioned, his name's Tanner, he got to fly out there with me. So I just showed up. I flew in. I was at the airport. I was like, "Oh, hey Tanner, nice to meet you." And he's shorter than I thought he was. But it was really cool to meet him. I get to meet a whole bunch more people this summer, which is really awesome. But yeah, I just think those are the few things I would change. I think God has used this ministry and worked through a lot of people in awesome ways that I never could have done on my own, quite frankly. And there have been so many people that have mentored me and supported me through this that would be really awesome, have been really awesome. And, just looking towards the future, I don't necessarily know, like, as I said, I'm a college student. I'm going to technically be a junior this year, which, even though last my first year I came with credit, so I am sort of at that level. Looking towards like what's next, I really struggled with that this past year, of like taking on my major course load, and kind of navigating and discerning what's next. And am I supposed to keep doing this, or am I supposed to move on to do something else? Is this like my junction? Because it's also really important to remember that TRC is teens mentoring teens, teens working with teens. And at some point, I'm not going to be a teen anymore, and it's going to be time for me to pack my bags and move on or whatever. But so I guess I've sort of been in this discernment stage, and I felt like for the time being, I'm really in a place to stay where I'm at until I hear like God really strongly saying, "This is what's next," or "It's time to move on." I'm just going to stay put because I still think that there's still work to be done. There's
Yeah.
always more work to do, especially on Roblox. So I think I'm staying put. We're actually working on our 501c3 right now, and getting to meet the people from my online church. The different leaders will be really phenomenal this summer. But other than that,
That's
where I'm
really
at right
cool.
now,
It's interesting that you're wrestling with the same sorts of things that a normal church would too, because any church leader needs to be thinking about, there's a lot of bivocational pastors out there that are thinking, should I be doing this church thing full time, or should I just pursue my career? And it doesn't have to be an either or conversation. You can be bivocational and do both. And then there's other conversations too, where pastors are thinking about succession, where, all of us, even Jesus said, "I'm not going to be with you always."
Yeah.
And so even with you, you're thinking through those same sorts of things where you're thinking, what is your succession plan? And those are all healthy things to think through that anybody doing a church plant would need to think through anyway. I am a little curious because I feel like you consider this to be not just, to be more than teen ministry. You consider it church.
Yes.
And one of the things that people always ask when they're dealing with church online, let alone in a unique expression like within Roblox, is how do you guys handle sacraments like the Lord's Supper or baptism or all of those things? How do you guys do that? Do you do it inside Roblox? Do you do it outside Roblox? Because you do it sounds like some of your discipleship in Discord outside of the Roblox environment. So I'm just kind of curious how you guys handle that.
Yeah. I think first on your point, whenever I've shared this with anyone, I've never had significant opposition to it, which is kind of very different from what I've heard from other people that are doing similar work. That is one of the big questions that people have is communion and baptism and marriage. We don't do marriages. I can assure you of that. I don't think that I'm comfortable marrying people that are 15 and 16. I mean, if they want to find a local church to do that, bless their hearts, and they can do that. But also that's against the Roblox terms of service, so we're not going to risk that. But in terms of communion and baptism, I guess I'll start with baptism. We don't baptize people online. However, if they show a desire to be baptized and an actual yearning to do that, I have in the past. I'm more than comfortable. Since baptism is such a personal one-on-one thing with God, I'm comfortable asking for more personal information from them to find a local church, brick and mortar community in their area. And if there's not, I'll look up traveling ministries to do that, because I really believe that there's something in physical water and physical touch in baptism. So I've connected people before with local ministries that are willing to do that. And sort of it brings up that whole we're a non-denominational church, so where do we go in terms of denomination? It's sort of where they're kind of leaning with their beliefs. So I've done that before. In terms of communion, I also, as a Presbyterian, I really value the bread and the wine or the grape juice. However, online we represent it, but we don't serve it necessarily. So during services a couple times a month, we will gather physically around the table with our little avatars, and I'll say, and I'll like talk about it, and I'll say the things that the pastor says. They'll say like, "This is the body broken for you. Take and eat. This is," I won't say take and eat because we're not eating, but say like, "This on the night that he was betrayed, Jesus took the bread and he said, 'This is my body. Take and eat.'" We'll do the same for the drink, and we'll say it virtually. And people, and I think that or at least in my experience, is that when you're online, despite like not being there in person, you still have equal like emotional attachment to what's going on. So people are really
the point is the
emotionally
remembrance.
involved. Yes. So I think that's something that we offer online. Cool. There was something I was going to say and I completely forgot it, but yeah, I think that's what we do in terms of that. Yeah. Oh, I remember now. I don't know if you've chatted with Jay Kronda before.
Yeah.
He's doing stuff at Saddleback Church in California, Saddleback Online. But something I really like that he does is he, when they take communion, he facilitates it by encouraging people to actually go and buy bread and buy grape juice or wine, and while during the service they will facilitate it so everyone takes it at the same time online. So it still has that aspect of community, and it's still, if you're doing it at the same time, it's still being blessed from one person in one location to another person in another location online. And I think that has a lot of possibilities. Obviously not for necessarily people that can, like young people that can go to the store and buy stuff, because not everyone's able to do that. But I think that's a cool alternative.
Yeah, one of the things we do with our ministry online is I just tell them to grab whatever you have at hand and allow Jesus to make it sacred. In the same way where Jesus took the Seder meal in the first century, which was, it wasn't a communion meal.
Yeah, that's true.
It was like their Thanksgiving, basically. And Jesus made it into something else. He made it sacred. And so I tell people in the chat, I just say, hey, just grab whatever you have at hand, let Jesus make it sacred, and then share with us what you have. So like some people say, I've got a Ritz cracker and some Diet Coke, or I've got, a Lifesaver and some beer or whatever. I mean, it usually doesn't get too far off the rails, but even missionaries in other contexts where they're in places like Indonesia or New Guinea or something like that, where grapes don't exist and neither does bread, they have to get creative. And sometimes it's like mandioca root and water because that's all they have. And they allow what they have at hand to let Jesus make it sacred, because the point is not necessarily the elements. The point is what Jesus does and the remembrance and that emotional connection that you had mentioned, because there is something there. I don't know why it is that way, but I feel it every time I take communion, even though I'm taking communion with, it's basically, it's unleavened bread and grape juice, but it's not, it's probably not the exact same thing that Jesus did in the first century, but it's close enough. I mean, it's the point of the remembrance. That's the big deal. And I feel it every time, just like I feel it when I pray for people, even though they're 500 miles away. And I feel something because I think the spirit, because God is spirit, it transcends the time-space continuum, it transcends all of that stuff. It transcends the place.
Yeah,
and you
that's
feel
something
it.
that we talk about online is like, a lot of people say, why are you on a kid's game? Why is this here? Why does this exist? Or like, it shouldn't exist, is something some people will say. I just think about, when I think about God, and we think of him as creator of all that is, all of nature, all of the universe, all of the sky. Like, how big that must be. If God created such big things, how can he not transcend into these digital connections and be in this place that really, really, honestly, Roblox, we're not doing things. I don't know where my mind is at right now, but we're not really doing things like on the platform. Like things are, but what's really going on is the things that we're thinking and the emotions that we're having behind the screen. So like the relationships are, while like the medium of like what's going on is online, the actual like emotions changing and the things we're thinking between like each person is really physically happening. And I think that
Yeah, it's real.
God can work in between them, in the medium and in person to person in our hearts. And I think that that's really
Absolutely.
important to remember. So
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end
yeah.
of the day, you can choose whatever is in the middle of those relationships between people.
Yeah.
It could be a telephone. It could be a book of the Bible, for example. It could be, like this call that we're having over Zoom right now. It could be Roblox. Whatever you choose to have in the middle, whatever that happens to be, at the end of the day, it's people relating to people. And what I hear you mention over and over and over again is with the relationships. And those can form in lots of different ways using lots of different mediums. But at the end of the day, it's the one another's of ministry. It's people ministering to people using different tools and mediums to do that. So, man, I love, your heart in that. We're kind of getting to the end of our time. And so I'm curious, I'm sure that this is going to spark lots of other conversations that others would like to have with you. So what is a great way for people to get a hold of you and to kind of get an idea of the ministry that you're doing?
Sure. Let's see. I guess you could either email me or send me a Facebook message. I don't know if those will be links somewhere or if I should say it here.
Yeah, we'll probably put those in the show notes. Yeah.
Yes.
Put that information.
You could also check out our website. It's kind of not the greatest website ever. It's not really functioning right now. So I guess I'd also encourage you to check out our. There's a video that CNN did a couple of years ago, or 2018. And if you want to watch that, all you gotta do is Google CNN VR religion, and it should be the first thing to pop up. So
yeah, that's great.
That'd be cool.
That's great.
Excellent.
Well, I'm going to end the recording here, but I realized that I forgot because we just started talking. This has been really great, dude. I so appreciate your time. We just started talking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little intro in now in the recording, and I'll just like edit it and like stick it in there. So I want to make sure that I pronounce your name correctly first. It's Daniel Herron. Is that right?
Yes, Daniel Herron.
Daniel Herron. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Okay.
And remind me where you're from.
Oh, I'm from Kansas City.
Oh, Kansas City. I've never been there before. I went
to
St. Louis last year, though.
Whenever you come into Kansas City, look me up, man, and I'll take it to the best barbecue you've ever had in your life. I know that my son.
I'm eating so much barbecue this summer.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh. Listen. So since the article came out in 2018, or the video, these people that do ministry in the Middle East, they reached out to me, and they're sort of a secretive funding organization because of all the security stuff in the Middle East. But they reached out to me. So it was their conference that I talked about meeting Tanner with in October. And they're now the ones that sort of fund the ministry that we're doing. So we're actually being funded by them, which is really cool. But they're also funding me to travel across the country to visit a whole bunch of people from the online church. So I'm hitting up the South this summer. It's gonna be
That's awesome.
Deep South. We're going North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Texas.
That is so cool. Well, dude, seriously, you may not know this, or maybe you do. There is the Church IT Network conference that's going to be here in Kansas City in October. And there's a whole online ministry track. where a whole group of, I know Jay will probably be there, Jay Cranda.
Yeah.
And DJ Soto will probably be there from VR Church.
Yeah.
I think if you go to citn.org, you can get tickets and get more details about it, but it's in Kansas City this year. And I could,
that is not what CITN.org is.
Oh, it's something else.
The Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria.
Okay.
I'll look it up though.
Yeah, Church IT Network.
Church IT. That's the Cancer Immunotherapy Trials Network. Church IT Network. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, churchitnetwork.com. That's it.
Cool. Isn't Kansas City where the IHOP is?
Yes, it is.
House of Prayer.
You have International House of Prayer, Westside Family Church is where I'm at right now, and also Church of the Resurrection, one of the largest United Methodist churches in the United States. And that's where they're hosting the event. And it's an amazing facility.
Wow.
It's really cool. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, man, just to put that on your radar, if you've got travel budget, you could actually probably meet a lot of people in the space just by going there. And then we could meet too, because I'm going. That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be fun. All right. Well.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and say, thanks for joining us. This is the Church Online Podcast. I'm Jason Morris, and I'm here with Daniel Herron talking about church inside Roblox.
Yes.
And this is the conversation. So, I'll just probably use that little clip and stick that on the front of it.
Cool.
If there's anything else that you want to mention and say to the folks who are part of the podcast.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just be sure to send it to me before you publish it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll go ahead and cut it up. There's really not a ton to edit, I don't think. I've got to submit it to the team, and he's got a whole group of people that, they do the editing and fix all the levels and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll make sure that I send it to you.
And what's the podcast called?
It's Church Online Podcast. I could probably. That's a really good question, because we're creating the content right now so that we can send it out. We're just doing a lot of stuff that way. So this is just getting started.
Okay. Well.
And when I'll make sure I'll find the link and stuff so that it hits you right. We just wanted to make sure and get a lot of content together, and then we'll be able to send it out every week or every month or whatever for the next 6 months or a year or so. We've got about 15 episodes or 16 episodes between all of us. Each of us are taking about 4 episodes between DJ Schwang, Kenny John, Jennifer Miles, and I. We're all just kind of doing it together. And a lot of these guys have been in the church online space for a long time.
Yeah. Well, it was great to talk to you. I'm sure that this will turn out better than oh my gosh, when CNN came in the CNN video with DJ Soto. Oh my gosh, they took a 2.5 hour interview and chopped it up into mostly me talking about like what we do with trolls. And I mean, there's so much more to it than what we do with trolls. So I'm sure this will cover a little bit more than that, but
yes it will. And hopefully it will open people's eyes to think differently about different expressions of church. That's the whole point in this interview, was just to push the envelope a little bit for people, because even for some people it's a leap to think about church online. And it's another leap for even church online people to think about different expressions of church online. like, VR church or Roblox church or gamer
when
church.
I think about the VR baptism, that's a step for me, definitely.
Yeah, it is for a lot of people, but I think it's good that those types of things are good for people to think through, because it surfaces the right types of conversations. Like, what is church? What are we really trying to do here? And what our goals really are. And when you have someone pushing the envelope like that, it actually causes really healthy conversations for church on site and for church online, let alone all these more fringe expressions of Jesus Church. And I think they're all valid in their own ways. But not every church does everything the same. And every church tends to criticize every other church for the way that they do it differently. But the matter is, Jesus is being preached, and in that we can rejoice. They may do it differently, but that's okay. And so
unless we want to criticize you for it.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Okay. All right. So Dan, it was really great to see you. I hope to see you in October, man.
Yes, I'll try my best.
Okay. Thanks for taking the time.
Yes, of course. See ya.
See ya. Bye.
God bless. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Church Online podcast. We had a great time diving into who the Robloxian Christians are, what they do, and the details of their outreach. Make sure to join us for the next exciting episode on the Church Online podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to get the latest episode updates.